Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. I'm your host, Al Richards. You know, life happens to us a lot, right? Punches us in the gut. There's good things that happen to us, bad things that happen to us. We take all the good things for granted, I believe, when really we should be also taking the bad things for granted. And I don't know if that really even makes sense, but there's so many blessings that come out of bad things that happen to us in life. This podcast is a great example. You know, if it wasn't for my spouse's alcoholism and basically really my past addiction back in the early 2000s, I wouldn't be doing this podcast. So it ends up being a blessing. But also what's another blessing is that we have people that get punched in the gut many, many times. And they have found a way to stand up, dust themselves off, and now they're out there helping other people do the same. And it means a lot when you're laying down in the dirt or the mud and you don't know how to get yourself back up. It's really cool to have someone reach their hand out and say, "Come here, I'll help you." Well, that's what our guest is going to do today. So our guest, Rochelle Christiansen. Rochelle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We've been looking forward to this for a while, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, yes. And you scared me earlier. So I always reach out to our guests over the weekend to make sure everything's good for the Thursday that's coming up. And she's like, "No, that's a hard time for me to get because I work." And I'm like, whoa, what? Wait a minute. I'm going back and I'm looking at her message like, "No, you said it."
To be fair, you got me before the coffee.
Yes,
so.
yes. That is fair enough. That my daughter would say the same thing, right? Yeah, you got me before the coffee because the coffee kind of helps everything. That's anyway, again, Rochelle, thank you so much for being here. And I just want to also say thank you for all your love and your support. You know, we had our first ARC event here just a couple of weeks ago, and you showed up. You brought your son with you. And it's the first time we actually met in person. We've only talked like on social media, right? So it was really cool to meet one another finally. That's what I love about doing this show is meeting incredible people like yourself. I knew you were all full of life and spunk from the first time you and I started communicating on social media. And as we started sharing our lives a little bit, I'm like, man, if she's up to it, I got to have this gal on my show.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So, I would say my journey kind of started, I was raised in a little town, small Delta, Utah.
Delta.
Little tiny Delta.
There used to be some good pheasant hunting out there back in the days.
Yeah, and I think if you still know where to go, you can still find them.
Get it?
But I think because they've done away with the ditches. I've heard that's why.
Wow. Okay.
It's gone down. But anyway, that's beside the point. That's where I grew up. And you grow up sheltered, right? You don't notice things about your childhood till you get older. And, you know, when you're in a little tiny town, you don't know what all is out there. And when you're raised by I explain my mother as a very passive victim personality. So my parents divorced when I was 8 years old. I was actually the cause of it because I'm the one that turned my dad in for the abuse that was happening in our home.
Oh, wow.
It was me. My mother would have never left. So I'm raised in this little tiny town by a very passive woman who doesn't have that strong sense of self-worth, self-love. And every time I showed examples of self-love or acceptance of something about myself, I was basically told I was conceited. And so I shoved all that down inside of me. And you're in a small town. You marry your high school sweetheart because that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
So after 13 years of marriage and 2 children later, and I had my first daughter right away. I had cancer when I was 13 years old. So I only have 1 ovary from that. And so I counted myself lucky being able to have children because I didn't know if I could. And then I realized about halfway through the marriage that I was being abused. And it took me a long time to get the courage to leave that situation. And then when I finally got the courage to divorce him, and the end of that marriage was quite scary, but I believe sharing it actually might help other women. I don't even know if I want to tell all this. Maybe I should.
Well,
I shouldn't.
it's up,
But anyway,
it's up to you. Yeah, it's up to
he
you.
was basically, so he was abusive. I got out of that marriage.
Okay.
I was single for about a year, had no idea what I was doing. None whatsoever. I'd never been single. I dated him junior year, senior year, right into a marriage. I had no idea. So I had what I like to call my rebound marriage. And in that...
I've had 2 of those. Just being honest, guys.
So, about a year into that marriage, I was absolutely miserable. He was not good to my son. His son walked on water. My son was no good. And I wanted out. His ex-wife died pulmonary embolism at 26 years old. I stayed 2 more years for his son. I got out of that. My friends introduced me to another great guy and ended up moving in with him. About 8 months into that relationship, realized he was paranoid delusional schizophrenic.
Wow.
And left that situation. And then that's when it hit me. I am the common denominator here. And you can't become the better version of yourself if you don't acknowledge where your problem in that is. So I put myself through counseling. And that's where I started my journey of self-love, self-growth, self-acceptance. And do you become the best version of me? And not be a victim, not let all of the things that have put me down ruin me, but yet instead empower me and turn me into something better.
Holy cow. Can I ask,
Yeah.
if you don't mind sharing, what age were you at when that
occurred?
epiphany came to fruition there?
Let's see, how old was I? If I had to guess the time frame, now we're going to tell how old I am.
Well, and
Okay,
I know
so
it's good I
it's
didn't ask you,
totally
because
fine.
I know that is one thing I don't ask a woman. I don't ever
Nope,
ask their age.
I'm okay with it. I
So-
am 45 years old,
okay,
and I don't care
okay.
who knows it because I never,
Well, good for
ever
you.
have anyone guess that age. So, let's see. I would say it was probably, I was in my 30s. I was in my mid-30s.
Wow, that's
easily
really
my
good to
mid-30s.
figure that out at that time.
So I felt like I was actually behind the curve. I felt
Really?
like most people had it figured out before then. And I realize now that I do hair for a living. Mm-hmm. So I work with the public, and I've realized through all of that time, my favorite thing isn't just that I get to help create a more beautiful outside, but my saying has become, I'm going to pick you up, I'm going to dust you off, and I'm going to readjust your crown.
I love that.
So the first thing someone sees on a woman, they hold very dear is their hair. And if your hair doesn't look good, you don't feel good.
Yeah.
But if your hair looks great, you feel great.
Yeah, you're walking
But
on
now if I
cloud
can
nine.
help you internally also, that's even better. So I realize my struggles are not just to help me, but they're also to help others. So then when I started to realize, like, young girls come sit in my chair, and their boyfriend's beating them up, or this guy they're seeing's putting them down, or they don't like themselves. In that 2 to 3 hours that they're sitting in my chair, if I can take them from down here and lift them up here, pick them up, dust them off, readjust their crown, and I realized that's what I love the most. And I had this cute little old lady. She was my favorite dirty bird. My
Dirty
favorite
bird.
thing. She was my favorite dirty bird. And she would come in every week and tell me, so what's new in your single life? So tell me your stories. Tell me what's going on. And I would tell her like different dating stories that were going on in my life. And she's like, girl, you need to write a book. And so I kept saying, okay, I'm going to do that. And she goes, no, you really need to write a book. And one day she brings in the Reader's Digest and she's like, there's no way this is true. There's no way this is true. You got to read it. So I read this story in the Reader's Digest. I'm like, yeah, that happened to me. She's like, no. And I'm like, yeah, he was a former Chippendale dancer even. And she's like, you're kidding. And just the look on her face, she's like, girl, you have got to write a book. So I started writing the book. And then about a year ago, I had a friend of mine say, hey, come with me to Florida. And I was just in this phase of my life where I was just going to say yes to life. COVID had happened, restricting everyone's life. And I'm like, you know what? No, I am not going to restrict my life. Life doesn't wait for you to live it.
Right.
So go live it.
Yeah.
That's what I say all the time. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go. She's like, seriously, no hesitation. No hesitation. So I go home, I book a trip. I get my airplane booked. She's like, you're serious. You're a doer, not just a talker. Damn straight I'm a doer, not a talker. So I go to this thing and I manifested it. I threw it into the universe. I'm going to go to this seminar in Florida and I'm going to meet a publisher to publish my book. And I get there and I happen to just walk down to the hotel lobby to get a Starbucks coffee out of the Starbucks inside the hotel. And this guy standing in the hallway stops me, compliments my red hair against I was wearing like a blue and white striped dress suit that day. And he complimented my hair against the contrast of the suit. And he tell me about yourself. So I told him like, I'm a hairdresser and I'm writing a book and and it's about this, Confessions of the Redheaded Hairdresser. And I like it. I happen to own a publishing company. All right, cool. So he inspired me, like, get it done. So I've been working on that. That's kind of my baby, and that's kind of where I've been going with it. But I want to take the empowerment that I'm doing behind the chair and expand it on a greater level.
Yeah. I think that is so cool what you're doing. So what I've been picturing while you've been telling the story, I've been picturing... And I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but I've been picturing someone who's drowning in their beer at a bar, taking shots, and of course they got the sober bartender, right? Mm-hmm. And he keeps pouring them their drink, and they're just like, this is what's happening in my life, and so on and so forth. And bartenders are like therapists, right?
Hairdressers and bartenders.
But I have also learned that hairdressers are the same way.
Yes.
And it's so cool that you figured that out from your life experiences, because we were talking, we did a live show, or if not a live, we did a live show yesterday, but we stayed after and we had a show here with John Apsey, who was the former Bear, was supposed to be here, but unfortunately couldn't
Which
make
is
it.
really funny because my ex-boyfriend is his friend.
Is it really? Oh my gosh.
I was actually
So
thinking about them and listening to your
listen to it.
show. Mm-hmm.
So we had Nick and Ryan, who with this Tribe of Giants, two incredible guys. Buddha was here first time. I mean, I've met Buddha before at different things, but he came in and kind of hosted the show.
Nice.
And we had Ron Duncombe that was here, who was the former monster truck driver for Maverick.
Okay.
And we were basically kind of talking about that, about the book, The Giant and the Smalls, that Nicholas wrote.
Okay, I'll have to read that.
It's an animated book. Looks like it's for children, but Nick confessed last night, and he goes, really, no, this is for adults. And I've read the book to my grandkids.
But sometimes adults need to have,
right? Because it's our inner child. We need our inner child, our little boys and our little girls to come back out.
Yeah.
Which is what you figured out. Mm-hmm. You're now, that little girl's coming out, and you're ready to play, and you're just going to imagine it, and you're going to have fun. Mm-hmm. And I've been working on the same thing because I had someone that I worked with who was a guest on our show as well, and she's like, Al, it's time for that little boy to come back out.
Yeah.
And now where was I going with it? It's just cool to see how we figure this out. And we were talking about rebranding ourselves, right? Tragic happens to us,
yes,
right?
It does.
Buddha lost his job.
Yeah.
Ripped right out from underneath him. John, 22 years, 20 plus years as the Jazz Bear.
Yeah.
Changed how mascots are. He literally changed it across the nation. Ripped right out from underneath him.
Right.
Ron, 15 years driving the monster truck. Ripped right out from underneath him. Nick, going through a divorce, lost everything, bankrupt, ripped right out from underneath him. Me, I lost my job of 24 years, ripped right out from underneath me. And we're talking about figuring out our lives.
Right. How you can change a tragedy into something beautiful.
Into something. And you even talked about it in your bio. You've gone through some relationships. You've shared a little bit of it here.
Yeah.
I've had my relationships as well, and it's like I always seem to pick the same ones, and it's just because that's what I'm putting out there. I'm the knight in shining armor, and I'm going to come and save you. I'm going to protect you.
Oh God, yes.
Not realizing what I'm bringing with it. See?
Yes, and that's one of the things I had to learn when I went to therapy was I am a fixer, and it's sometimes hard to grasp these things about yourself.
Right.
Like, wait, I am the cause of my own misery because I latched onto someone that I could fix. I wanted to fix them because I see the beautiful soul inside and I'm going to help them achieve that. And then my counselor goes, no, No. You don't get to do that. They get to do that for
get to do
themselves.
that, right.
You can help,
Yeah.
but you can't do. That's their job.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing I have had to change about myself, is
Yeah.
realizing it's not my job. It's not my job to make it better. It's their job to make it better.
You can be there to comfort, right?
absolutely,
You can there to
and
be the
support.
cheerleader, right?
Yes.
The supporter, the cheerleader,
But not at the
hugs.
expense of myself.
Exactly. And for you to get it
Mm-hmm.
really at such a young age, I mean, I was always taught growing up that women hit puberty before guys do, and maybe that's why it took me till I was in my mid-40s to
Sure, faster than
And I'm
you
not
do.
saying I hit my puberty at 45, no, but I'm saying that's kind of, so it took me losing my job of 24 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking I'm this awesome guy, right?
Which you probably still are, right?
Well,
that didn't define you.
But I wasn't the right person, okay? So when I lost my job, I had some people that I were friends with for a long time.
Okay.
And they came up to me and they're like, yeah, man, sorry about what happened. And I lost my job because of me. Failed UA because I was doing alcohol and cocaine every Friday and Saturday night. Every Friday. I did it for 8 years. And I hit it so well,
Yeah.
my wife had no clue. She even when we were dating, we dated for 3 years, she had no clue. I hit it that well. She knew I was drinking. She didn't know I was doing everything else. So they're like, we never trusted you.
Oh, wow.
What do you mean you didn't trust me? Me? Come on.
Right,
I've
you're
always
a
respected
trustworthy
you, your
guy,
family. I mean, we celebrated the birth of our kids and partied together and all that. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, we never believed anything that you would tell us.
Oh, that had
And
to hurt.
when I went into a depression for about 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, man, I blew 24 years of dedication building myself from the very lowest paid mechanic in manufacturing all the way up. I got into management, making great money. 3 years in Kentucky, helping a plant get up and going. And I'm like, am I really this person?
Wow.
And so I had decided right then and there, just kind of like what you did, I'm going to figure out who Al Richards is.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's going to go. I don't even know what I'm going to do because I'm not punching a clock for corporate America ever again.
Yeah.
And this has been one of the greatest experiences from 2009 up to this point of my life. Mm-hmm. When I tell people who I used to be, I get that same look that you just gave me just a second ago.
Yeah.
They're like, there's no way. And I'm like, oh yeah, there was a way. I says, I was one of those buddies that, Rochelle, if you called me up and says, Al, I'm moving. I can't find anybody to help me. Would you please come and help me?
Yeah.
I would have my feet up on the coffee table, watching some kind of sports on TV and go, sorry, Rochelle, I'm really busy. I got a lot of stuff going on.
Oh,
That's the kind of person that I was.
Wow, I just assumed you would have been like, I'll be the first one over there.
I am now.
Nice.
Because I'm like,
Okay.
this is not who I want to be.
Right.
That's who I was, but that's not who I want to be. Mm-hmm. Now if someone calls me, my integrity means everything to me.
Absolutely.
And to me, it's very important to what I want to leave behind, right? Especially for my grandkids.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this is exactly your aha moment that you had. You picked yourself up, dust yourself off, you put your crown on, and now you're sharing that with everyone else.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's important.
Yes.
Had I had somebody that could empower me and lift me. I had one shining star in my life when I was younger that did that for me, and that was my Aunt Judy. And she gave me some sound advice in small little doses here and there throughout my childhood. But, I had so much from like the abusive father and the passive mother and the abusive husband, and then and I had no idea what a narcissist was, and now that word is way overused, but I was literally married to
because
one.
people don't really know what a narcissist is. That's why it's overused, I believe.
But I agree, and all of us have traits that could be somewhat that way, but I didn't know for the longest time. And then, so when I really started getting into it, and you said something earlier that made me remember it. So that inner child. So my therapist had me read a book by not Chan. I think I say that right.
I haven't heard of that one. Okay.
Yeah, he's a Buddhist Zen master, and he's got several. I've read several of his books, but he had me read Reconciliation, Healing the Inner Child. And I realized that a lot of my trauma and a lot of my behaviors were caused from my childhood, my abused little girl inside of me that was scared of everything. I'm this bright, shiny, loud, extroverted redhead, and that stands out in any room I walk into. You'd never know, if I didn't tell you, that I was this abused little girl stuck inside, like abused as a child under the age of 8, turning my father in at the age of 8, having a mother that would have never walked away, and then having her basically, in a sense, put me under thumb because she didn't know how to be any different. And I wasn't taught this self-love. And then getting sick at such a young age, and spending a good 6 months of my life in the primary children's hospital. And when you go through different things like that, it changes you. But I didn't know how to heal me until I actually sought out that, like, healing for myself. Realized, okay, wait, I need to work on me. I need to take time for me, because we see it all the time where people carry their heavy baggage into the next relationship and the next relationship and the next relationship. Like, hey, this is heavy. Will you hold this for me?
Right?
Yeah. And you don't actually learn how to unpack. You don't learn how to heal. And you never actually truly love who you are. And half the time, like you said, you don't know.
Right.
You don't know who you are. And now I know, like, I am that friend that you call me in the middle of the night, I need you, I'll be there. Mm-hmm. And I tell my friends all the time, and it's my thing, and I know I need to do better at it. I don't always call, but I will always answer. And I feel like we have to be loving and supportive, because not everybody knows that they need to reach out for help. They don't really know that there's an answer. They don't really know that there's a way out of the darkness or a way out of the hole they're in. Or sometimes they don't even realize they're in one.
That's very true. That's very true. There was something I was going to ask with you saying that. Gosh, and it slipped my mind. You said it, and I'm like, oh, I got my next question. But we'll keep going. It'll come over. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people even realize that they are in a hole. And oh, I know what it was. It's hard for us to share what's going on in our life, because literally we think we're the only ones that's going through it.
Yeah.
With all the billions of people that are in on this beautiful planet, how can that be? It's like the first time I shared with a friend what I was going through with my wife's addiction. When he said, you need to talk about this. And I'm like, who wants to listen? He goes, who wouldn't? There's other people going through this too. And I thought about it after we left the coffee shop, and I'm like, I'm not the only one.
Right.
Really, I was thinking, why am I going through this in my life?
Yeah.
Now, to have someone, and I want our listeners to know, and you guys have heard me say this many times, if you're going through something, if you know someone like Rochelle who has gone through it, right? That's the person you want to talk to.
Yeah.
Because we were just talking about this at lunch, and I've used this a few times. If Rochelle's telling me what it's like to give labor, and I'm like, I got you, girl. I know exactly what it feels like. I know all about it. I'd be bullcrapping myself, right? Because I've not lived through it. I don't know. Being on the other side, I could say, oh yeah, it looks painful, but I don't know, But when you go to someone who has lived it, they're your greatest support.
Absolutely.
And you need to find those type of people, because do not be embarrassed. Sylvia and I just did a show, and Sylvia's behind the scenes here, and our show actually just came out today. Use your voice.
Yes.
If you hold it in, you are creating more problems in your life. You're creating more turmoil. You are basically growing a tumor is what you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, they say when you hold everything and you actually have a greater possibility of getting cancer.
Exactly right. Or any other kind of health problem.
Yes, because stress manifests itself like the body keeps score. Everything that has happened to you will manifest itself if you don't deal with it.
Right. The good part about that is you can change that.
Absolutely.
You can change it.
Yep. The moment you start reaching out, start speaking up, start helping others, it makes everything better.
Yeah. And the first time that we met here a couple of weeks ago in person, I got that from you, Rochelle, right off the bat. I mean, seriously, and I'm not saying that just because you're here and you're on the show. I felt that from you. We saw each other. You came through the door. I look over, I go over, we give each other a hug. And I could feel that freaking energy. I'm like, this woman, she has the crap. I would have said a different word, but Sylvia's helping me so I don't say swear words. And I'm very grateful for that. So thank you, Sylvia. We want to make this a PG-14 a show, but so basically
from 13. I
like that. From 13, yeah. Well, it's because we're a little more mature, right?
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little. Anyways, but I mean, really, I felt that energy, and I was brought up in a way that to look at women that they were stupid, they didn't belong in certain areas, you controlled them. And that's when I got married my very first time.
Yeah.
My ex-wife, who we're friends still, she's the only woman I ever had kids with, thank goodness. And because I love my two daughters, and I'm so grateful I didn't go any further.
I actually can feel that more than you know.
Can you? Yeah. So anyways, she even said, you weren't very nice. And here I thinking that I was. But then I started thinking, how was I brought up? Mm-hmm. She's 100% right. See, I mean, I cannot deny it.
Yeah.
And I've had friends that cheated on their spouses. And I'm like, you guys are stupid, man. You just don't do that. That is something I just disagree with.
Right.
I ended up doing it.
Ooh.
However, in the 90s, not in the 90s, we got divorced in the 90s. In the early 2000s, I finally grew the kahunas to call her up and apologize to her.
That's good.
And said, I am so sorry for what I did to you.
Yeah, that's good.
And I have to apologize to her still for the way that I treated her. Mm-hmm. Because no one deserves to be treated that way.
Right.
No one.
But it also helps you heal.
But it helped me, and it does help me heal. Mm-hmm. It definitely helps to heal. So that's why it's important that we have our voice, right? We have to talk with someone because we cannot do it alone. Professional sports people, I tell you what, they have a coach to help a quarterback throw. They have a coach to teach them how to step. They have a coach that teaches them how to move. They have a coach for flipping everything.
Yeah.
Right?
And on top of it, they usually have a mentor that teaches them life skills.
So that's exactly what you're doing and helping people open their eyes just a little bit more.
That's what I hope to do.
And for that, I tip my hat off to you.
Well,
so yes, I think it's incredible that you are doing that. We need more people out there to do that.
I agree. I agree. If the world actually was more loving and supportive and actually wanted to create a safe haven for others in their space, the world would be a better place. There's just too much negativity, and negativity doesn't fix anything.
Right.
Positive breeds positive.
I like that you said that, because it really does, right?
It does.
I mean, where does anger get you?
It doesn't fix anything.
Nothing gets resolved.
You'll notice it if you actually watch. You start raising your voice to somebody. I raise my voice most of the time out of excitement, just because I'm excitable. But if you raise your voice in anger and you actually pay attention to someone else's body language, the second you raise your voice in anger, they shut down. I've seen it over and over and over again. And so then there's times when I wonder why I still do that with my own child. Who's actually an adult.
We are human.
And then I wonder,
also, right?
what? Okay, I know better than to raise my voice. He's just going to stop listening. But, we do that. we get angry, we raise our voices. And so I have found for me, that's been, and not everybody loves it, but actually, Notch Han says it's a good thing. If you cannot have a flow of conversation, if you're heated and you're angry and you can't have a conversation without using harsh words or raising the voice in anger, say, I need to take a break. I need to pause this conversation and I need to collect myself. And the other person says, okay, how much time do you need? And usually for me, I just drive around the block a few times and listen to break stuff from Limp Bizkit. It makes me feel better because someone understands how I feel. And then you can come back to that conversation and actually speak openly without anger and listen. Because listening is also a part of communication that we struggle with. We speak, but half the time we don't listen. And I know I'm guilty of that. Ask me how I know. So it's
You've
always
had a baby,
right?
right?
I've had 2 of them. Imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's how you know. You've been there. You've done
yes,
it.
I have. Yes, I have.
You know, and again, this is another thing I love about doing these shows is we had a guest on a week ago or 2 weeks ago on learning how to pull yourself away from a situation that could lead into some bad anger.
Yes.
I think is so good. Now, I've been able to learn how to control my temper because that's another thing that I had an extremely bad temper, but that's what I grew up around. I was brought up when things didn't go right or someone didn't say something right to you. You threw things, you kicked things, you put your fist through walls, windows, door. It didn't matter what it was. You threw a fit, right? That's how I grew up. I started throwing a fit, and then I hurt someone.
Yeah.
And while they're laying on the floor curled up in a ball, I went,
that's a problem.
I don't want to be this person. 6 months of therapy. But to make that choice, to go, I can continue to go down this road, and it's probably going to get worse. Or I can pull myself away from it, let this person know, let me chill. And I'm getting a little bit better. I didn't say a lot, just I'm getting a little bit better. And I'm learning from people like yourself who are sharing that, right?
Yeah.
And we are human.
Of course.
You know, there may not be times when we do it 100%. However, if we can do it the majority of the time, we've made a huge step.
Well, there is this saying that I like that says, don't compare yourself to others, compare yourself to who you were yesterday. And be a better version.
Yeah.
So that I write positive affirmations on my mirror at work and my mirror at home. And,
that's cool.
And so you do your positive affirmations every morning while you're brushing your teeth because they're right in front of you.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that is a regular. I change them every so often, but it's a regular on there. Is be a better person than I was yesterday.
I love it. Well, and that's what we should do. I want to change that word because that should is a word I'm using. I'm getting rid of my vocabulary. I don't want it in my vocabulary.
There's a gentleman that he runs a great foundation I was telling you about recently. He says that, I think he says I should have all over myself.
Yeah.
He's like, stop doing that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that he said and one of the things I was watching him do. And I was like, I like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That and the word but. So I learned from a gentleman who was on our show, worked for Matter Behavioral, and now him and his wife are doing some really cool things. He said, do you realize but cancels out what you said?
Absolutely.
And
every
I'm
single
like,
time.
What?
It does.
He
you
goes,
can say, I'm sorry, but.
If you get in an argument with your spouse and you say, I love you, but you just canceled out the I love you. And I'm like, are you serious? And
Absolutely.
He's like, yes. He says, however, if you go, I am really angry at you, but you've canceled out the anger.
There you go.
So it can be
Switching
used
it around.
for both ways.
I like that.
Keep the positive out of the but. Yes. If you're going to say
Keep
something...
the positive out of the but.
Right? Keep the positive...
I'm totally putting that on the mirror.
Huh. That is keep the... I better write that
write
one
that
down.
Keep the positive out of the but.
Keep the positive...
The $1 million ideas you come up with.
But it's the but, B-U-T, not the B-U-T-T, right?
Oh, I like the other way better.
The but. Okay, we'll put it with 2 T's. I love it. We'll circle that one too.
Oh my gosh,
All
I
right.
love it.
Yeah,
Now, you
that is
have
a
to
good one.
spell it with the one T, but it has multiple meanings, so it makes it
It does,
funny.
right?
And
Yeah.
I am all about those innuendos. They make you think outside the box, and they give you that little bit of a giggle. I love it.
Well, since we're having a good laugh here, we'll keep the laugh going, but let's stop for a quick commercial break so we can get a drink of water or go to the restroom or whatever. And we'll come back, and we've got some more positive things we'd like to share with you guys. So we'll be right back.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Do you know someone who's gambling with death due to an addiction? Do you know someone whose life is being turned upside down due to a loved one that's battling with addiction? Hi, I'm Al Richards. I am the host of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. I started the podcast due to my wife's battle with alcohol. Let's just say I became addicted to her addiction. Our podcast is helping people understand a little more about those who have battled addiction and those who are hurting from their addiction. Through raw vulnerability, we share stories that help uncover the root causes of addiction. Shame felt on both sides, matter of the conscious and subconscious mind, continued beliefs, and often confusing paths of recovery. We collaborate with real people and their stories, as well as licensed professionals, to help our audience gain a better understanding of addiction. You can find us on Resilience Talk Network. You can also find us on Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. That's Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. You can also find us on YouTube. Just look up the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Other Side of Addiction. We are here today with our special guest, Rochelle Christiansen. So again, Rochelle, thank you so much for being here. You know, the first part of the show was just incredible. I mean, I could spend hours on these shows talking to people like yourself, because I really do feel like we have so much in common, and I love the energy that comes out. You know, I mean, really, I've been in this studio many times where you can like feel the spirituality. Many times been in this studio where you can just feel the flippin' energy. I mean, literally, you couldn't cut it with a knife. You're one of those people. I mean, seriously, it is so cool to feel. I mean, I'm getting more energy just feeding off of your energy, which that happens. A lot of people don't think it does, but I'm a firm believer that it does.
Yes.
To be able to take what has happened in your life, and what a great concept of being a hairdresser, to be able to help other people that come in, right? Because you're someone they trust, and they open up, and I'm sure you hear some things, and there's probably a lot of things that you can't share because of the privacy and things that they share, and I just think it is so cool that you picked up on that, and you're going, I'm right here for you. You know, I'm here to help you through whatever it is that you're going through. So just from all of us here, thank you. Thank you for doing that. It is really, really cool. We need more of us out there to do that, and I think we're starting to get it. I think people are finally starting to open their eyes, and they're starting to use their voice to talk about it, right?
Absolutely,
so,
yes. Yeah.
So we were talking during the commercial where we wanted the second half of the show to go, and we basically met through social media.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And which is kind of like the new thing, because I'm a big networker. I love going to networking events.
I do as well.
I love the energy. Mm-hmm. I become a whole different person when I walk into a room and it's full of people, and
the extrovert, and you start realizing
just,
who you connect with.
Right?
I need to know you. I need to know you. Yes.
Yeah, it's great. Now, I couldn't quite remember how we ended up meeting through network, because a lot of times people will reach out to me, other times people will introduce me to them.
Yes. So if I recall correctly, it started out that I have a son that's an addict, and being a mother of an addict is extremely painful. And for the longest time, I had no one to help me. I had no resources. I was stuck in it. And I remember seeing a post, a good friend. I truly believe a good friend of mine had a post with you in it.
Okay.
And it had that whole other side of addiction on it. And I had just made a post on Facebook saying, I have a son that's an addict. It was a post with me and my son, and we were at a Maverick hockey game, and we were with the Maverick Bear and all that stuff, and because I have a friend of mine who's the photographer for the hockey
Grizzlies?
team, for the Grizzlies.
Okay.
And so I was at one of the games with my son, and I would take my son to the games all the time, and I loved it. But as my son went down the path of addiction and we grew further and further apart, and he went down his downward spiral, that memory popped up, and it created a lot of emotion in me. And I was like, I'm done being quiet about this. I am done sweeping under the rug that my son is an addict. I'm done sweeping it under the rug that both of my children struggle with mental illness. I am done saying it's like there's a stigma around it, that I'm supposed to be ashamed, like I've done something wrong because my son's an addict, or my son has mental illness, or my daughter has mental illness. Like, I've always abused myself thinking I had done something wrong. And I finally healed myself enough with everything that I had been doing for women's empowerment and all this other stuff. Like, wait a minute, no, this is not my fault. This is not my fault. It could be this, it could be that, it could be this, it could be that, but there's a problem. And when I was looking desperately for help for my son when he was like 17, 16, and I was wanting something, but I couldn't find anything that cost less than $3,000 a month. What single mom has an additional $3,000 a month or more to help their child? They don't. And so I'm like, I'm done being quiet about this. This is a huge problem in our country. There's way too much mental illness and addiction that is just being ignored. If we sweep it under the rug, it'll just go away. But guess what? It doesn't.
Right.
And so I had made that post on Facebook, and the next day, my client Mindy comes in, and she and I are talking, and she's like, honey, my heart goes out to you. But her son is also going down the road of addiction. So we're talking about how it started with my son and stuff. And then she left my chair, and she went to a foundation for Life is Worth Living Foundation, and they were doing a big event at the Deseret Peak out in Tooele. Okay. And she met Mallory, that wrote that book, Inspired to Recover. And Mindy told her my son's story. And she wrote in the front of that book to my son directly, this world needs you. I hope that you can change. And she wrote some sweet little message in there. And I sent it to the jail, because my son was in the jail. And he read that book. And so I reached out to her, and she told me about the Other Side Academy. And so I reached out to them, and then I remembered seeing something about the other side of addiction from you. And so I reached out to you to ask you your opinion on it.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you and I started talking, and I realized that you were sent to me to help me help my son. And I look at him, he's so lost, and as a child, he had ADHD, And sometimes I think to myself, I should have never put him on that damn Adderall that then was changed to Vyvanse because he kept getting immune to the dosages. And was I creating the drug addiction without even knowing it? Like all of these things that you go through as a mom, right? And I realized, like, my son has been through more in a couple of years on drugs on the streets than I ever will have been in my lifetime. And my heart breaks for him, the things that he has been through. And then I still get so frustrated because now here he is. He came home a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. The things that a teenage boy, well, he's not teenage, he's 20. But the things that a boy will do while high and drunk are just absolutely, completely crazy. And so my son committed a felony. And it isn't until your child commits a felony that will ruin his life, possibly. Because that's not on your record. Yeah. Places that won't hire a felon. But that's what it takes to get the help that he needs. Like, that's a very big frustration for me. But yet at the same time, I have to realize, okay, but no one truly changes until they're willing to change.
Yeah,
and so, of course, then I have to tell the fixer in me, maybe that's what it took. And hopefully, this is the path that now, hopefully, he's hit rock bottom. I don't get to know that.
Right.
I'm just giving him that chance to change right now. And it's hard. And you have been a rock to me in that moment when I truly needed somebody who understood what I was going through.
Wow, thank you.
It sucks.
Yeah, it does, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about it in our morning show. We had Margaret Thompson on the show, and she does family recovery. And we talked about it. Is there a difference between your spouse and your child? You know, and there is a little bit, but really you're still fighting the same battles, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're my spouse and we're going, you know, I'm either going through addiction or you're going through addiction, say, I've had enough. We're getting a divorce. See ya.
Yeah.
I'm going to go my own way because I can't deal with this. When it's your child.
He's my blood. I created him.
It's hard, and especially for a mom and a son.
Yeah.
Right? Because they do have that special bond, just like dads with their daughters, right?
Absolutely.
You have that special bond.
Yes.
It's so much harder. However, the triggers are the same. The boundaries are the same. So there's similarities in both of it. However, it's just a tough one. And thank you so much for saying that, because, you know, when I sat down with Brad, who owns Resilience Talk Network, and we first started doing this podcast, he told me this would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically in the back of my head, I said, yeah, that's not going to happen. And I get between maybe 1 to 3 phone calls a month where someone reaches out to me.
Yeah.
What's really cool about it, if I don't know how to answer it, I know someone that does.
Right. You've created this little group. And I love that you're doing that, because I've been, for several years, feeling like, yes, I have my clients that understand. Clients that have had children that have gone through addiction, some that have recovered, some that have not. And they give me hope. But the fact that you're trying to put together this support group so that more people can have a place to turn, find it easier. Because when you do like a basic Google search on addiction recovery, it brings up all the expensive stuff.
Yeah, right? Well, because they can pay for it to be on the top 5 in the Google.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So, you know, people who really, really need that help feel like they have nowhere to turn.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah.
And so what you're doing is absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
And I'm honored to be a part of it.
Well, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you here. I mean, seriously, it really is, because all this is possible because of people like yourself. I mean, really, it is. It's not the radio station. It's not the Other Side of Addiction podcast. It's the people that are all involved with it. That's what's making it what it is.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I'm a very spiritual person, and I have to say, it's God's the one that put me on this path. And I'm doing everything that I can to make sure that I'm going to make something of it. You know, kind of like what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
You're going to make something of it.
Yeah.
It's so easy for us to jump in that mud puddle and be happy as a pig. You know, I mean, that's how they bathe, right? Just stay stuck in it and just be happy throwing mud all over ourselves, right? Or your term is pick them up, get them out, dust them off, put their crown back on.
Yeah.
When we have that community, man, it's so helpful.
Yeah. When you can take somebody who's struggling and help them see their self-worth, give them the tools to help grow the self-love, plant the seeds.
Yeah, plant them, yeah.
Plant those seeds so this self-love can grow, right? And so my sister gave me one of the best compliments I've ever been given, and it was one of the greatest things I've ever been told, and I love this, and I wanted to share it because it's something that more people need to hear. Okay. So in a world full of anger, hatred, whatever, just in the world in general, okay, you can either be an egg, a carrot, or a coffee bean. Okay? If you're an egg, the world is going to make you hard. If you're a carrot, the world is going to make you soft. But if you're a coffee bean, you create something amazing. And my sister looked at me and she said, "You're a coffee bean."
Wow. I'll second the motion. Can we get a third in the audience? Yeah, we got a third. All right. Yeah.
And I love that. And I want to help more people realize their worth.
Yeah.
Because so many people don't see that. We live in such a consumable, replaceable world. And going back to the whole singles thing, because let's face it, I've been single forever, but it's by choice because I know what I'm looking for. And because I've done that work that I know what I'm looking for. And when you know what you're looking for, it's harder to find because you won't settle for just anything that comes along. But that doesn't mean I haven't had my fair share of stories. Yeah, where was I going with that?
The coffee bean and helping people find their worth.
Right. So, but when you have that self-worth, you're not going to settle for these things. But it was back to the singles thing. It's the dating apps has made even people consumable. We're consumable and replaceable. And so if you don't like what's going on right here, you don't have to fix it. You don't have to work on it. You can just get on an app and there's another person.
Right.
It's fine. You just swipe right a couple of times and someone's replaced. And I have found that it's actually ruining that human bond, the human connection, and the need to create a long-term relationship. And I've made up my own analogy because more and more people are like that, and it's becoming a trend, and I want to change it. So I'm not looking for a hunter. I'm not looking for the guy who's going to do a little bit of work, chase me around for a minute, get me, stick me up on the wall like a trophy, and brag about me to his friends for a minute, and then forget about me and dust me off once a year.
Yeah.
No, I want a gardener. I want the guy who's going to till the soil, pull the weeds, plant the seeds, water it, harvest the garden, and do it again next year. That's what I'm looking for. And you know what? If women, and I hate to bash on women, but if women, because we've lowered our standards, we don't make men chase us anymore. We don't make them do the work to keep us, to get us, to do that. We become consumable, replaceable.
Yeah.
So we're complacent. We just keep doing that. And I'm like, no, that's where that needs to stop. We need to set our standards higher so that the men don't think they can do just the minimum, the bare minimum, because then it turns into the top, let's say the 10% hot guys, they're over this tall, they have the muscles, they fit this little box criteria, that 5% chance that you'll find the love of your life because our standards are in this little box. So these guys, they don't try hard anymore because they've got more attention than they know what to do with. And then you've got the angry ones over here that are not getting paid attention to, and now they're like, they hate everybody. And
throwing like temper tantrums.
We need to shift that. We need to change that.
Yeah.
We need to start recognizing that everyone has worth, everyone has value, and everyone's worth fighting for.
You know, and I would even like to throw that even on the male species here. So we just did a show not too long ago with Curtis Marsh and Lance Allred, and we talked about toxic masculinity. Mm-hmm. That's what the subject was on it. And it was a very, very interesting topic. And what's really cool is my friend Chanel, who I met from networking, beautiful, beautiful lady. I just adore her. She was in as a guest co-host. Okay. And during our commercial break, she goes, "Mel, you should do a show about toxic masculinity." And I went,
"That's something I will listen to."
Yeah. You got it. That's a great idea. And so I took it. And I was able to get two great people to do it. And Lance Allred, I don't know if you know who Lance Allred is, but he was the only deaf NBA player in the NBA. Played in the NBA, I think, 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years.
That's impressive. I have to
Very
look him
impressive,
up.
Right?
Yeah.
Does public speaking. He's gone through speech therapy most of his life. He has hearing aids. However, he talks just great. I got a TEDx thing. I'll see if I can even find it. I'll send it to you.
I've probably seen him, but yeah.
He was brought up in polygamy.
Oh, wow.
So now, see, that even makes it more interesting, right?
Wow, yeah.
So
okay.
it's just awesome. Now, Curtis, our good friend Curtis, who's actually going to host our Healing Utah Success Summit, he's going to be our host, and he's really excited for it, and we're excited to have him. You know, his nickname was Chaos. You know, biker guy, drugs, alcohol, masculine, man.
Oh,
you know. And now to see who this gentleman is. And when I say gentleman, I mean gentleman.
I love
He is one of the coolest guys that I've had an honor to meet. And I met him at a men's group a couple years ago where it's just a place where guys met. We met at another gentleman's house, and we broke off in little groups, and we would pick a subject, and we'd talk about a subject. Some were single, some were married, some were dating. Some just said, "I'm not interested in anything or anyone." And I've never been in a room full of guys that cried like that ever my whole life. We all opened up. We all got serious.
That's the best.
Toxic masculinity, right? Mm-hmm. We're brought up to be hard, right. Mean. You don't give a crap. You put the woman in their place, right? Because that's how our fathers were brought up. Times have changed. Things have changed. I'm a huge believer that a woman can be anything a woman wants to be, right? If she wants to go out and be a CEO of a company, by golly, cheer her on.
Yes.
You know, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Is her place just in the home? No. Is her place in the home to help with kids? Yes, of course. Just like my place is in the home to help with the kids and different things. However, you combined it all, right? It's not one or the other.
Right, no.
And
we're both to blame for the problems, and we're both in charge of the solution.
Absolutely. That is 100% correct. It's time, like you said, that we start shifting this. Mm-hmm. I've had some people say it's too late. It's gone on for way too long. Well, you know what? It's not too late.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing for me personally, and this is my personal opinion. Take it for what you want. But I see nothing wrong with a man being an old-fashioned gentleman and opening my door. Mm-hmm. I actually insist upon it. And some women will disagree with me.
Yeah.
But I won't be going on another date with that guy if he doesn't open my door.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, okay, just in a general sense, you know, he's supposed to be more protective and I'm supposed to be more of the nurturer. I mean, we give and take. There's always an ebb and flow. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, not a protector in the sense of that controlling, like, you know, toxic masculinity, like you said, because my first husband was he was full-blooded Hispanic. And so he had what I called, and it's a word, like the machismo. He was the machismo. And anybody who knows that, like, Spanish knows what that means. That is. It's like, I was to be seen, not heard.
Like some kids.
Do what he tells me to do. And everything with him, like, there was a compliment with a stab every time. And I realized that was not just the machismo. That was just him as well. But, you know, I feel like, oh crap, where was I going with that? But there's nothing wrong with a woman being feminine. There's nothing wrong with a man being masculine. Mm-hmm. I personally prefer it. But yes, a man does need to be able to know how to show his emotions and how to communicate them effectively and with a caring manner. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make him less of a man if he drops a tear or two.
Yeah.
Right? Just the same as a woman when I have to be really super strong and I have to hold the world on my shoulders. There's nothing wrong with me being in my masculine state because I have to be or because I want to be, you know? But I don't know. I just feel like there just needs that men and women are created to complement each other. To me, I will just say it as a gift from God.
Yeah.
We are created to complement each other. Women are good at things that men aren't good at and vice versa, because we complement each other.
Well, yeah.
And I think that we need to be comfortable in that to create a long-term relationship and acknowledge where we have our strengths and where we don't.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times the strengths that we don't have, a lot of times we count on our partner, right, to help us with those strengths. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's taken wrong.
That's true. Yeah.
Maybe a lot of times it's taken wrong.
The divorce rate wouldn't be so high.
You know, this has been an awesome show, and I want to kind of go back to your son right now. So he's doing pretty good. I mean, I had the opportunity to meet him.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Seems like an awesome kid.
You know, he's got my heart. And, you know, he's so likable. He really is. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to help him work on his humility and respect a little bit, you know, because he's 20. But, you know, I, of course, as the mom, the overprotective a little bit, like, well, don't put yourself in harm's way and you'll be less likely to make bad choices. And he's just like, I'm so proud of myself because I was around a friend that, you know, I used to use with. And I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah, right.
Why would you even go there? But, you know, what is it? 2 weeks now? 2 weeks that he's been out, and he was all proud of himself a week out. Like, I made it a week, and I'm like, okay. And he's like, I get a box of candy bars. I'm like, well, maybe not a box of candy bars, but you know, okay, we'll do something nice. You know, like he's proud of himself, so I need to celebrate all of his little wins with him.
Absolutely.
But I'll tell you, it's been an adjustment. It's been an adjustment having, like, he's lived that life, and so for that life, being on the streets and using drugs and, you know, because he started marijuana at 13. So anybody who tells me marijuana is not a gateway drug, oh, I will fight with them all day long. Because in my circumstances, it's a hell yes, it was. Yeah. Because if you have an addictive personality, that's where it's going to go. And it went from marijuana to acid to cocaine to meth. And me never touching a drug, I don't do drugs. It's not in my home. I didn't set that example, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't understand it at all.
Right.
So as he's talking about things that I'm completely disconnected from, and he's loud and laughing about it, and I'm like, like,
yeah,
you know, I don't get it. I don't understand it. And so then it's like, okay, I need to understand and have people to help me. And like the one gal that I met at your gathering the other night from USARA.
Was it?
She's tall.
Oh, Jennifer.
Yes, Jennifer.
Short hair?
Yes. And she was like, because when you're a mother, when you react to your child, you're reacting from a place of fear. Because that's automatic for a mother to do that. I'm so scared that he could fail again. And the consequences of him failing are huge.
Yeah.
Because that sentence from the felony will be applied if he fails. And for me, that's terrifying. And I don't see him taking it as seriously as I want him to.
Right.
Right? But then everybody that meets him is like, oh, he's so great. He's so respectful. He's so fun. And I'm like, you know, he is. He is. And I need to step back away from my place of fear and just love him. But it's hard. It is hard.
It is hard. And you said it early in the show. It's his choice. There's nothing we can do. And we talked about it in the show this morning. There's nothing we can do. And especially with people like ourselves who are the fixers, right? Mm-hmm. We're the ones that want to help fix everyone. Are you sad? Come here. I'll help you. You know, and and literally we're not even helping ourselves.
No.
In all honesty, you know, because how can we help someone when we can't even help fix our own issues? Right? And I had a lot of issues I needed to fix. Mm-hmm. but I was too busy trying to fix other people. And I let myself go too.
But you've worked on that.
Yeah.
And you're in a better place.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I can say the same about me. Is I actually, once you recognize it, okay,
Yeah.
I've done some work now. I'm good. And then I have to remember I can't do it for him.
Right. It's their choice, you know, and being in the recovery realm that I am and have met so many incredible people, they all tell you that. Mm-hmm. It's like their choice is still their choice at the end of the day.
Yes.
There was nothing that you could have done. You could have been walking behind them. You could have handcuffed yourself to them. It does not matter, right?
Right.
They're still going to do what they want to do.
Yes.
All we can do, though, Sil, is like you just said, Rochelle. We can still be there to say, I love you. I care about you. And celebrating, we talked about that, the show, celebrating every single moment. We had a gentleman on our show, and I talked about this in our first show. He was a guest on our show, and he battled a 2-decade porn addiction. Started at age 13. Married, mission, LDS family, everything, and he was still struggling.
Yeah.
And he couldn't figure out why he couldn't beat this.
It's a bigger addiction than people realize.
And he went on a business trip, and he's like, I'm not going to be able to do this. You know what? I'm just going to take my life. And he knew of a bridge of this place he was at. He's out of town, family here, drives to this bridge, and he decides to say this prayer before he jumps off to kill himself. And this voice hit him that said, why are you not celebrating? And they do the same thing. They call it, why are you not celebrating the days you didn't use, right? And he started thinking about it. He's like, I've gone a couple days. I've gone a week. Why am I beating myself up? Because I made it these days, right?
Yeah.
So he ends up calling his wife as he's driving back to the hotel, gets a ticket, has his wife fly out. They sat, they prayed together, they talked about it. I can imagine how scared his wife was for him at that time, right?
Absolutely.
And how scared she was just even for the family and everything else, right? And he realized that instead of beating himself up for the times he messed up, he started celebrating the times that he didn't. And he says before he knew it, 2 months, 6 months, 3 years, 5 years. And he goes, so he now, when he talks with people, he's like, I tell him to celebrate the good days.
Yeah.
Don't knock yourself down for the bad days. Celebrate the good days, because as long as you're basically patting yourself on the back, it's going to help you. It's going to help you get along. Because, right, when we beat ourselves up, that puts us right back in that same circle, right? Because we're feeling sorry for ourselves again. Or we're going to give ourselves the reason why we're doing it, and it's because of this. Because we have to justify it as an addict.
Well, yeah, and then also the chemical release in the body. With negativity, you get the cortisol and that kind of a thing, and with the positives, you get what is it, like your dopamine or your oxytocin. Because I hug people, releases oxytocin.
Yeah, that's why I like hugging.
Yeah, it's better.
I'm a big hugger.
But yeah, definitely celebrate those little wins.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important, and we don't focus on that enough. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because even I needed to hear that.
Oh, well, I'm glad I did too then.
Yeah.
I probably needed to hear it. That's why I brought it up. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there anything, I mean, we've gone in over an hour, I think, already. So it's hard to believe that it's happened. That's what time flies by so quick, especially when you have an incredible guest like yourself and great conversation. It just flies by really quick.
Absolutely.
So is there something that you would like, what would be your main message to our listeners today?
You are worthy. You are enough. You can be anything you set your mind to. You can accomplish great things, and you are capable of hard things.
Okay.
It doesn't matter whether it is addiction to drugs, addiction to alcohol, addiction to porn, like you said, or self-worth, struggling with self-worth, and not seeing that and allowing people to abuse you, or, allowing yourself to be abused. It's all... They all come together under the umbrella of love yourself.
Yeah.
Loving you is the most important thing you can possibly do for yourself. You cannot truly love others unless you love yourself.
very well put, and it is true. Right? It's not just a statement to say it. It's 100% true.
It's the truth. Mm-hmm.
Because when you do love yourself, and it's not selfish.
No.
This is not selfishness. This is actually, it's a blessing of you loving yourself, because you have to love yourself to help others.
Absolutely. And when you see someone hurting themselves, right? You look at your child who's hurting themselves, for instance, and you're like, and I've said it to my son multiple times, if you loved you as much as I love you, you wouldn't do this. And it's true. You have, if you love yourself, you're not going to hurt yourself. You might, because you've had addiction or issues, and you can fall down, and that's okay, right? But you get up and you keep going, because I'm worth it.
Yeah.
I'm enough. I'm worthy. I am loved, and I love me.
That's exactly right. The only reason why people are falling into their addictions, doesn't matter what it is, again, because the brain fires the exact same way. It's because we're doing something to make us feel better, right?
Absolutely.
We've gone through some kind of trauma, bad relationship, divorce, a loss of a child, a loss of any loved one, accident, whatever it may be, depression. We're using this. It's like you cut yourself, you skin your knee, little Neosporin and a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
You're waiting for it to heal. However, if you keep falling down on that same knee, it's not going to heal. Right? You have to take care of it. And it's just like what we have to do for ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. When we're taking care of ourselves, growing, and you guys have heard me say this, there's no finish line.
No.
I'm telling you right now, when it comes to bettering yourself, there is no such thing as a finish line. Goals, yes. You can hit a goal, pick another one. One. But as far as bettering yourself, there is no finish line. You continue to go. And I'm a firm believer that my finish line will end the day that they put me in the ground. Because from here on out, since 2009, that's all I've wanted to do, was just, I wanted to go higher and higher. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing.
Absolutely.
I love it. Man, it has been awesome to have you here today, Rochelle.
I have loved being here.
So, and again, the energy's still so high. I'll be walking out of here going up to the Capitol later, and my energy will still be up at 1,000. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I am happy that I could do that for you,
Oh,
because
heck
you did
yeah.
it for me.
Heck yeah. Well, guys, again, thank you to everyone. Thank you to Rochelle again for being here. Thank you, Resilience Talk Network, all our sponsors, all our guest co-hosts, all our guests. Who else? All our listeners, just everyone. Guys, please keep in mind, remember, we've got our Healing Utah Success Summit coming up on Saturday, April 15th. It's going to be at the Miller Free Enterprise Building. You can go to rooshrecovery.com to get your tickets. They're only $35. It's really cheap. If you do want a box lunch, it's just an extra $12, but that's just going to the box lunch. There's no money coming to us. It's just if you want to eat, we just figured we'd offer some food for people who wanted to stay so they can eat. We also have our ARC, the Addiction Resource Collective group, that's coming up on Monday, March 6th. I'd like to do it on a Tuesday, but I already committed to someone who invited me to a networking group, and I won't break my commitment. Again, we talked about the integrity.
Yep.
I want to make sure that I don't want to break it off just to do mine. I already told him that I would be there. So, check out the Facebook page. All the information, I'll be posting it at least once or twice a week. Love to have you there. Cost is only $5. We'll feed you. Those tacos were pretty awesome.
The tacos were good.
Honkies, huh?
And I will be there. I'm coming again. Yes.
Yeah, and it was a great group of people, a really good
Absolutely.
group of people. And oh my gosh, what else, guys? If you hear one of our podcasts and you think someone could benefit from it, ask them. Just send it to them. Ask them to like, share, and subscribe. It's really, really helping us. I mean, our Podbean, man, we've hit over 1,000 downloads, and it's because of you guys. So thank you. Thank you very much. I get emotional sometimes talking about it because I know none of this would be possible without all you guys. So again, thank you so much for everything. And remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.